The Reading Municipal Light Department Board of Commissioners to order. This meeting of the Reading Municipal Light Department Board of Commissioners is being recorded at RMLD's office, 230 Ash Street, Reading, Mass. For distribution to the community television stations in Reading, North Reading, Wilmington, and Lynnfield, as well as live streamed on RCTV and YouTube. The RMLD Board of Commissioners recognizes the importance of hearing public comment at the discretion of the chair on items on the official agenda. Once recognized by the chair, all persons addressing the board shall state their name and address prior to speaking. It is the role of the chair to maintain order in all public comment or ensuing discussion. We have no remote participants, and Vice Chair Pacino will serve as the board secretary for this evening's meeting.
Yep.
Ed, are you here as a liaison from FinCom? Would you like to comment?
Thank you for
Ed
being
has
here.
no comment. Okay.
But you're always welcome to stay.
And Commissioner Talbot, do you have a comment?
I have a comment on behalf of a member of the public, who is Sam Kafai, who is, maybe mispronouncing his last name, the operator of the Gulf Station, Reading Square, 749 Main, who during the outage, a piece of equipment was, I don't know what happened, but it got fried, and he was telling me it cost him $600. So I promised him I would mention it, the public comment on his behalf, because he can't be here, just so people can understand what happens if there's an outage and there's damage in their business or house. Like what can they do, and what is the line of liability of RMLD or them or insurance or whatever.
May I respond? Okay, yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Talbot, for bringing that up. Generally, the protection of the equipment inside any establishment, whether it's residents or the commercial or industrial customers, it's all the responsibility of the owner, per our terms and conditions, because power conditions changes. And if they got sensitive equipment, it's the protection of the equipment lies on the owner. So if anything, because we do switching, or sometimes there are outages that beyond our control. So when they bring that back, when the power is coming back, it could possibly, the older equipment, they have lower tolerance, they could be damaged. If they don't have adequate protection to protect them against any power surges. So in cases like that, they need to refer to their own insurance company and file a claim with them. And they work with our insurance company and they try to resolve that. But generally, utilities all over the country, that's the standard practice. Nobody can guarantee that, when they're switching or the power coming back, that, if they have sensitive equipment, it's not going to be protected. It's going to be not going to be covered mostly.
Thanks.
Thank you.
He added, by the way, that I think 25 years he's never had an outage.
Yes.
So that's great. This was several hours during a business day, so that hurt him also, loss of business. And I don't know, did we ever get a report on exactly what happened?
Yeah, what happened over there was a loss of neutral. The transformers, they're brand new. So the problem was not the transformer. When the neutral inside the manhole, it gets corroded, and we have a good maintenance program, manhole inspection. The last time that we inspected, like last year, everything was fine, everything was intact. But this year, we haven't done the new inspection yet, which is going to happen soon. But because every year almost we could get into maintenance of the manholes, and also we got 7 or 8 other maintenance programs in place to maintain the reliability. So this time around, when we got in the manhole, the transformers are fine, the wires going into the transformers were fine, but the neutral connection, which is the return path to the source, to the transformer, that was we think was corroded. As soon as we jumped that, the system was back to normal.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
And loss of neutral, it happens during the storms. It could happen due to any unknown reason. Tree could come down, or wind. That connection could get loosened. So,
Thank you very much.
Okay.
you're welcome.
Just state there are no Citizens Advisory Board members present or members of the public here to make comments. So tonight's meeting is our 2023 budget presentation. Our first presenter is Hamid.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to present the 2023 planned capital spendings. You all have the spreadsheet, I believe. You all right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cover only the big ticket items on the spreadsheet, on the budget. So, and if you have any questions, by all means, just bring it up, and then I'll be more than happy to explain them. So the first item in the order that, I go by the order, the page number or the line number. So security upgrades at all sites. This is an annual program, basically from 23 to, it's a 2-year project. Mostly the expenditure is going to be in 23, 24. And then it's going to continue for maintenance for the years after that. So we're asking $650,000 total for the CY23, CY24. This is basically because of the requirements, the NERC physical security requirements. As you know, your utilities in the United States, they're mandated to, to make sure they meet certain requirements for physical and cyber security. So as a result of that, because we're following the best business practices, we hired the consultant Burns and McDonald's in 2020 to 2021, and in order to do the risk management assessment to see that what we need to do and making recommendations for the upgrading the security system, the access control, video management systems, the biometric access systems, the IP camera infrastructures and stuff like that. So in order to make sure that we follow the good business practices for securing the campuses at all over 230 Ashes Street, as well as the other substations. So the report is completed. They made their recommendations, and based on the report and the expenditures, we spread it in the 2 years, 2023, 2024. And basically the RFP, the next step is to be issuing the RFP in December 2022, which is going to be awarded hopefully in the first quarter of 2023 in order to get the work completed. Now, what are the challenges? The challenges basically supply chain disruptions, technology integration, and data security. So those are the challenges that we're facing. We've been dealing with that supply chain disruption issues lately due to number of problems, for the parts, and also the delivery and all sort of issues surrounding that. So that is project number 119, line 5, page 25. So any questions on that? All right, if not, we're going to go to the next page. The next one is rolling stock replacement. This is, again, the annual program. Every 10 years, we have turnover of the fleets and also the cars in RMLD. So the budget for the 2023 is $1,247,419. And this is for the digger derrick, 2 pickup trucks, electric, and EPTO material handler. So total of those 3 items is going to be $920,000. And there's also going to be a carryover from CY22 for van for $75,000 and trouble truck for $252,419, which we still don't know when they're going to be delivered. Again, the same issue with the supply chain disruption. And the summation of the carryover from CY22 to CY23, it's $327,419. That's going to total up to $1,247,419. That is project number 118, line number 6, page number 27. Okay. The next project is electric vehicle supply equipment, EVSE. That's project number 99, line number 7, page 31. We are asking for $963,917. The cost is including the material labor, basically includes 9 level 2 chargers and 4 level 3 chargers. And there's going to be CY23 carryover from CY22, some of that, because we ordered the level 3 charger that is still waiting to receive that.
Sorry to interrupt you, but is it possible we could give a copy of these sheets to Ed?
Oh,
I think that would be very helpful
You
for
can
Ed.
have,
here, Ed, I have duplicates. That one's too small.
Thank you,
Feel
Ed.
free to sit up
Thank you,
here.
Yeah.
Right there.
We don't bite.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
no, that's what I
That's
thought.
good,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you.
you, by all means. So basically, by 2028, we anticipate installing 80 of these units, 16 level 3 chargers and 64 level 2 chargers. As you know, the technology is on the verge of, it's advancing in this area, on the verge of actually change. So we are ramping up slowly as the technology is changing and advancing. So that's for that project. The next project is New Wilmington Substation Construction and Commissioning. This is project number 105, line 21, page 63. This is a 3-year project, basically from 2023 to 2025. And the budgeted amount is that one, not including the land. The land was purchased in 2022 this year in October for $4 million, but we are asking for $15,575,000. That includes the civil construction, electrical construction, and the commissioning. The civil construction that is going to happen in CY23, and the RFPs, they're going to go out in the first quarter of 2023 for electrical equipment, and also the commissioning is going to happen in CY24. We're hoping, if we receive the materials, transformers and the switchgear by 2024. Right now, as it stands, they're talking about anywhere between the 14 to 18 months, basically lead time for the equipment. So, and we'll see how it goes. We're hoping that, the substation is going to go online by mid-2024, depending on the materials if they come. Okay. So the updates on that one, the system impact study in order to get the PTF RNS status in that area from New England ISO. That's in progress. We just sent, we wired the money that they requested in the contract. And our contract is also signed, so we should be getting the contract, executed contract back anytime since they just received the money. And once that contract is signed by New England ISO, they're going to proceed with the study. And they're going to let us know in 6 months what the status would be, which I don't anticipate any problems. It should be going pretty smooth. Now, on December 6th, we're going to be going to the Town of Wilmington ZBA meeting for zoning and getting the permits for the substation. So that's where we stand with that project. Again, it is subject to supply chain disruptions, and that's one of the challenges. The other challenge, which almost, I believe that, we passed that, that's an England ISO PTF study, and their approval, which it's required. We should do that. The next project is the grid automations and modernization, optimization. This is an annual project that every year we've been asking for some money in order to automate the system. As you know, the system reliability success factors are good maintenance as well as the automation. That's how you can, achieve that. And we have a technology roadmap that it was done back in 2015. It was for 15 to 20 year automation plan, basically, that every year we do a little bit. That's why that, you see this project is presenting itself annually And this is including the intelligent electronic devices like switches for fault detection, isolation, restoration, which is supposed to, when it works, is supposed to minimize the outages to seconds rather than hours, which that's the direction we're going. The reclosers, cap banks, the communication devices, and power factor correction, the stuff which minimizes the system losses. Again, this project, we have supply chain disruption issues, and the project number on the spreadsheet is number 103, line 24, page 65 on that. Any questions on that? All right, we're going to continue. The next project is AMI mesh network expansion and meter replacement and MDM. That's project number 112, line number 25, page 73 on your spreadsheet. This project is spread over 4 years, starting from CY 23, and you see the amounts that we are asking for on that spreadsheet. The total project it's going to cost approximately $9 million, eight to be exact. 8,788,228 based on the numbers that we have today. So MDM budget is $281,000, and the implementation strategy is we hired a project management consulting company called PSE, and they're going to be managing the project. It's going to be a turnkey project. And RMLD, we're going to be working between us and them, trying to manage the entire project, the implementation. The AMI MDM RFP development is going to be in November of 2022. This month, we're supposed to have the RFPs ready issued, right, to go out on the street. The procurement process is going to be sometime in November, December of 2022. We're going to start the process, and we're hoping the bid award to be in January, February, or latest by the end of the first quarter of 2023. Again, we got some issues with the meter manufacturers, the supply chain disruptions. They're talking about a year waiting on the meters, because we got to replace 30,000 meters. And the MDM, just for people to know what MDM is, it's a meter data management. It's a housing for the meter data to come in, so processing and data analytic, and also the load forecasting and the transformer load management, so we can better manage the assets. So it is a very useful tool. That's the first piece that it's going to be installed in the second quarter of 2023 for $281,000. And then after that, then we're going to start changing out the meters, so we can. And again, this is very sensitive because we're supposed to. It's like a bypass surgery. We're supposed to keep the patient live while we are doing the bypass surgery. So we're supposed to still be able to bill the customers and keep our existing metering system running while we go out and change the meters, in batches once we have them. Yes, sir.
Part of this budget, as you're changing out meters, of course sockets are going to be rusted, and who's responsible at that point? You're replacing it. Who's picking up the cost for replacing the socket? Which, FYI, you can't get the meter, you can't get the socket.
Right. There are two components to that. And the last time that we did that in Danvers, basically, if the meter, the meter socket is attached to the house, so the customers are responsible for maintaining that. That's private property, basically, the socket. Now, the meter is ours. While we pull the meter, it's coming out, so we're going to get the wire inspector involved. And then, we have electrician on standby to assist. However, we're not going to be replacing the socket. We're basically assisting the customers so they can go ahead and hire their own electrician in order to change the socket. And once they do, we get the water inspectors okay to energize the meter and install the meter, and then we install our meter. So it's going to be a collaboration between RMLD and the customers in order to make that done.
And the management of that is going to be done by that third-party
Correct.
group.
Yes. And that
Not,
would-
yeah, because that could be a heavy,
It's a
heavy
critical-
lift,
It's a
right?
critical piece of the implementation. You're exactly right.
Yeah, it's not, that's not trivial. That could stop
Not
you,
trivial.
yeah, in the tracks.
For
Okay.
Hopefully, the majority of it will be pretty straightforward, but
Yeah.
there'll be more than a handful that.
No, sure, but that's, okay.
So we are hiring meter replacement professionals. This is all they do. So,
Okay.
so it's going to be done by them, and then obviously our technicians also are going to be following them, as well as the project manager who is in charge of the meter replacement. So to make sure everything goes smooth and safely, it's done safely.
If I may just add, just in terms of the context of this project, this is like one of the foundational parts of the infrastructure that we have here. It supports all the time of use stuff. It supports the peak management stuff. You know, one of the things that's in the beginning of your book, right? The charter remains reliable, low cost, non-carbon. And so this whole project, starting with the MDM, it is used by the billing department clearly. It's used by the IRD team in terms of rebates and feedback to the customers. It's used for all the power purchases. So this platform is a foundational piece. And we're going to the best of our ability, we're going to try and accelerate it to be less than 4 years. But from a practical perspective, we're looking at that time horizon to make it happen. But it is a critical project. Like the substation that Amit already walked through, it is a critical project to allow us to do the new stuff that we're trying to get done.
It also provides information for the outage management system, which, by the way, we have good news. The outage management system and also IVR, interactive voice response, that's tested completely. It's workable. And, then we're going to turn the switch on in January, as of January 2023, which is another accomplishment. Now, having
If I could ask a question.
Sure,
please.
by all means.
So you can use both meters at the same time, is that the idea?
Yes, that's right. So like what I said, the
Both
current
systems at the same time.
right.
But there'll be a meter swap within each house.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We're trying to compress that.
As the new meters are coming, they join the chain of the network in order to bring the information back. So everything is going to be coming to the office for processing. So
Bypass surgery.
bypass surgery, that's right. So that also brings that is like what Greg mentioned. This is a very, very critical project because it provides information not only to outage management system, but to the IRD for load forecasting, as well as it provides information for us about the power quality at different points in our system, so we can run the system smoother and lowering the losses as we operate them. So that is the key.
losses.
Yeah, speaking of losses, the next
Transformer losses.
slide, transformers and capacitors. So it's project number 116, line number 30, page 81. You see that this is annually we come and ask for certain money. This year you see that, well, basically it's more than almost 3 times as much as, previous years. This bucket basically contains all the transformers for maintenance as well as the capital projects. So everything is coming out of these. Every other project that you see capital, you don't see the transformers included because everything is accounted right over here. It's coming out of this bucket. So we are asking for $5,759,000 in the budget for 2023. We plan to purchase $4,405,000, which includes number of overhead transformers as well as the underground and the cap banks, and $1,353,950 is carryover from 22. So that number added to $4,405,000. That's going to add up to the total amount asked in the budget for 2023. Now, the opportunity presented itself to us in 2022 to purchase some transformers that were becoming available. At least they're going to arrive sometime in the second quarter of 2023. The 75 50 kVA pole mounted transformers for $250,000, and we We basically secured that this is going to be part of those transformers that we're asking for CY 2023 budget. Also, as you know, the challenges that we've been facing with the supply chain disruptions, the transformer manufacturers, they keep raising the prices because of the raw material cost is going up. And so far, we've been getting an increase for the CY 22 transformers that, they already, the bids had been awarded. The amount increase this year so far, it's been $226,687. That's above and beyond what was awarded. So we are expecting probably more coming in next year. That's why that we're asking that money. So we're anticipating more increases in the transformer cost, as well as we want to increase the inventory of the transformers so we can keep up with our aged transformer replacement program, which is a key to the reliability. Another thing that Commissioner Coulter you were asking, you mentioned that, if we can go out for 5 years or we checked with our legal department, and we can do that, possibly within Chapter 164 context. There is a way we can do that. And that's what we are looking now to see that, if we can go out for 5 years, but I believe it's going to have to be some sort of not to exceed amount for 5 years. And then, what we're going to do, we're going to ask the board to get your permission. So we don't have to go out to bid every year. We just go in once, and then we draw as we need.
Right.
So that way it makes the job easier.
I would think it would make it significantly easier on your part. They have more purchasing power, and it moves ready like that in the right direction using that. You become a small scale purchaser.
So I'm going to come back with the language next board meeting. Hopefully, the right context, so we can go and maybe we could vote on that, or for now at least. Once you approve this amount,
this
so
is
we
the
can go.
2023 number, right?
It's
which is a massive number relative to what it was last year.
Yep.
Usually the previous years it's been 1.5 million, but you could see that now we raised that so we can have enough inventory to. This is our bread and butter basically, so we need that. Okay, the next project is the.
Excuse me, I mean, just one quick question.
Sure.
On the mesh network again, in reference to the replacing of the socket itself, which
Right.
I think you said the homeowner would have to pay for.
Right.
Do you have any estimate of what that cost might be, and is that something that would be amortized over some period of time so the customer wouldn't get a one-time shock in terms of what that is?
That depends. It could cost anywhere, and because labor cost has gone up, anywhere between $1,000 to $3,000, depending on how small it is and the condition. Whether it is, sometimes it's not just the meter socket. No, you're going to have to go to the panel, and
Right.
panel needs to be upgraded to.
But that has to happen at all of our customers?
No,
No.
Just in
a small number, and that's part of the process that we'll walk through with these teams from PSE, because it's whenever a project like this is done, that's always an issue, as Commissioner Coulter mentioned. So there'll be a handful that will need replacements, but the majority won't. But we'll need, as we roll it out, we're gonna have to make sure that that's part of the customer communication.
Sure.
When that gets into the 23, 24, the 24, 25 timeframe, here's what they can expect and what their role is and what our role is.
In Danvers, when we changed out 12,500 meters, we had handful of them, like about 7 or 8.
Great. Okay,
And
thank
then,
you.
because even the sockets are old, still, we can change the meter unless if it's really rusted bad, that definitely at that time, the customers, they are experiencing problem on their end. Inside the house, they see lights are dimming, or they've got problems, the breakers keep tripping and stuff like that. So they have to upgrade that anyway. But, this process might expedite it a little bit.
Thank you, I didn't understand there was only a small subset.
Right, yeah, that's right. Right. You have a question? Okay, great. The next project is the reliability project, actually. These are projects number 458, 107, 106, 742, and 668. These are the line numbers 31 to 35 on pages 83 to 91. The intent of this project is the reason we have these projects in order to minimize the losses, which means going back to the low rates, making sure that the waste of the system are kept at the minimum. The second goal is increasing the plant value, which is our assets, RMLD assets and the town's assets. And the third reason is improving the reliability indices. So we can minimize the outages, especially during the storms and weather conditions. So this is again annual projects that every year we're asking for certain money. This year, for 2023, we are asking $1,674,384 total for overhead upgrades, the step-down upgrades, the underground facilities upgrades, and aged overloaded transformer replacement programs, which these are all the key projects in order to improve the reliability. Two of the most important among these four is the step-down conversions, which is going to minimize the losses, and actually, it's saving money for the customers, as well as the transformers that, they're going to be upgraded with the more efficient transformers. Again, the losses, they're going down as a result of that. So these projects, again, we have to be dealing with the same challenges as supply chain, as well as the easements. And one of the other issues that we're going to be dealing with, as many other utilities across the state, is the Verizon pole settings. So, if the pole gets hit or during the storms, we have to wait 7 or 8 hours for the Verizon to show up and to replace the pole. Anyway, so let's leave it at that. The next project.
Any questions?
Any questions? Do you have any questions? Okay.
What?
Yes, sir.
Is this engineered or is it to be engineered?
These are, as we put these for every year, I assign that to the engineers, and then we engineer them, and then we
Okay.
go on.
This is not it's not on the shelf work. It's
No,
to be
no.
designed. Okay.
These need to, because every year, we have a very good system. We have a scorecards for the transformers based on the age, load, and physical conditions, and then we prioritize them every year to see that, and then we go physically and we inspect them to make sure that, if something that, maybe the priorities are all the way in the middle,
changes, yeah.
but now it needs to be moved up because faster deteriorations. So we have a good program to identify those and, prioritize them in order to upgrade. So same as the underground facilities and also the step-down conversions. So we have prioritized them, and then every year, once the budget is approved, then the engineers are assigned, they design the project, and then we get them rolling. The next project, actually, there's other 2023 items. I just lumped some them, in different categories. Like IT is asking for $885,000. These are line 8 to 12. Facilities for upgrading the building and the stuff that we absolutely need to do on facilities. It's not everything, Some of the projects, we put them on hold, like the lighting, we're not going to spend $900,000 on lightings, if you're going to be moving in 4 or 5 years. So Greg and I, we have that under control and watching the spendings on that. Okay, only the stuff that needs to be done. So it's $450,000 for office upgrades and rearrangements. The forced account, this is the credit that we get on line is number 27 to 29, $383,000. These are the projects that the state is we just completed one on Hopkins Street and Main Street. So this was recently done, and we got the credit back from the state. So number of other projects in Wilmington for the bridges and route 125, 129. What they do, they want to upgrade those bridges, and we need to relocate, which they're going to compensate for us. We estimate how much it's going to cost. We send them the estimate, and they get their approval. Once it's approved, then we're going to charge them that money, and they pay. The routine constructions, line number 40, we're asking $1,458,000, and this routine construction includes all other projects that were not predicted, like the pole hits. If the pole hits in the middle of the night, we don't know which pole is going to get and how much construction work is involved. So it's going to go out of this bucket. So as other unexpected events or constructions that we need to do that we did not forecast into the budget, CY23 budget. Again, we got the same supply chain disruptions as challenges and technology integration, because as these things are coming up, we need to make sure that they fit into our model, the roadmap, so we're not spending twice. Like if the pole gets hit, we're going to go with the taller pole. We're going to go in anticipation for future construction, future road, future construction, the plans that we have. And what we do, we just upgrade the poles. So if in the future, let's say we want to install a switch on that, we don't have to go back and change them. So we do the construction based on the future expansion and upgrades. Any question on that? I believe the last slide, it just summarizes basically the budget. As you could see in CY 23 and 24, we got big numbers. CY 23 for $22,850,000, CY 2024, $24,646, and as we go into our 2028, we're going down to 9 million basically. Now, why CY 23, 24 such a huge numbers? Well, the bulk of the budget is basically for new Wilmington substation, AMI mesh network expansion, and MDM. The transformer annual that almost tripled compared to previous years due to the reasons mentioned. The reliability upgrades, now, this year actually was a little bit slow compared to last year due to the COVID issues and supply chain disruptions. We're still waiting for the switches that we were supposed to complete in the construction in the second quarter of this year. We still haven't received them. So obviously we did what we could, and in spite of all of that, we're finishing strong this year, because we got the projects to the point that we could without the equipment that we needed in order to complete. So we're going to have to go back once we receive the equipment, but pretty much we're on target with all the projects. So as the rolling stocks and also the EV chargers. The forced account credit, we're going to be receiving $749,000 for CY 23 through CY 26. So that's the anticipated credit for state projects. So that concludes my report for CY 2023 budget. So do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, one question. So with the Inflation Reduction Act, significant possibilities. The first question is, can we spend more money? And
Above this?
above this, is it possible to do that? And is it? Well, we have to find out more, right? But at a certain point, do we want to spend more money? Do you have shelf-ready projects that you could pull back? It looks like you do, that we potentially would want to spend money on this year if they qualify, right? That's what we don't know that yet.
I think there's two key pieces of that. One is many of these projects. So these dollars are not to exceed dollars. And again, this $23 million budget is almost twice what it was last year. And the challenge that we have right now is the ability to execute these projects, right? So if everything comes through smoothly, we would get all these done. The reality is, things get pushed out, particularly due to the supply chain things that Hamid mentioned. But in parallel, these existing projects, we are going to chase both the infrastructure funds, which are still, the mechanism still being worked out, and the new IRA funds to fund these projects. And then there will be additional projects that aren't part of the budget, some of the within territory things that we're talking about, like the Maple Meadow project, for example. Those, we're going to try and do funding. We'll present those at the right time next year. That'll be above and beyond this. But at the end of the day, these dollars, we're going to work aggressively to get a good chunk of these dollars funded by grant dollars. But the way the budget is structured, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes with the operating budget, the budget is not assuming that we'll actually get those dollars. So we're trying to give you, I'll call it a worst case or not to exceed.
Absolutely correct. I just, and that's, if there's potential there, are we tapped out? I mean, are we tapped out, like, force-wise? Could we do more, or is this, this is a stretch to get this done, realistically? Is it, could
Depending on the supply chain.
Yeah.
I mean, if we get all the materials as they promise, we're gonna be able to get that done.
Yeah.
Good. But if everything is being pushed out,
Yeah.
which the way that the current market is, it looks like, so probably we're not gonna be able to do more than half of this,
Okay.
realistically.
But
And-
we're going to work our tails off.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can do.
At the end of the day, as you guys, as you look at that last slide that Hamid had, right, the budget summary, we got 23, 24, 25, right? There's a bolus of spending, which are driven a lot by the substation, by the AMI upgrade, right? The substations, I won't call it a one-time event, but it's a one-time event for the next 40 years, right? The AMI MES network, that's the one-time event for the next 20 years. So those big things, and our goal is going to be, back to your point, particularly on the AMI program, is to pull that back. Like, if we can pull that off in 2 years rather than 4, back to Commissioner Stempak's question of, we're running 2 systems simultaneously. We want to minimize the amount of time we run 2 systems simultaneously. So everywhere we can, we're going to try and pull stuff in. And then back to the suggestion that you made before, that 5-year, multi-year budget for buying transformers. If we can get deliveries faster, then we'll deploy them faster. Again, because we've got, as Hamid mentioned, we still have a significant number of transformers that are aged that we want to replace before they fail.
Right.
And the challenge right now is the limitation in terms of materials. We don't necessarily have a limitation on labor. You'll see some higher labor numbers in the budget, assuming that match this operating budget. And again, that's going to be a not to exceed, but we're going to balance the 2 of those when we get materials to make sure we have the team in place to actually execute.
I just wanted to add that we actually using every opportunity that comes across, or presenting itself. So with the exception of, like, the materials that we don't have anything in control, everything else we're going to meet the deadlines. So that's how we set up. But like the poles, even the poles now, they're hard to come by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they're telling us they used to be 6 weeks. Now you're talking about 12 to 15 weeks. So in anticipation of that, we beefed up our stock and inventory on the poles. So, we get more deliveries, we almost doubled up what we used to order. And as we're getting these, they're going to go in the field immediately, for the construction, for these projects, to the point we can.
I have a question for you, Bob.
Yeah.
Do you think the infrastructure money is going to flow faster than what we're sort of laying out here?
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I do.
Okay.
And I think it's once the rules are figured out,
Okay.
it's game on, and it's you
Game
gotta
on
spend
now,
it.
actually.
Now,
Get
now,
ready.
now.
Yeah.
You have
Now.
to spend it now, and so you have to spend it. I believe within the next couple of years,
Yes.
because the
2026,
because the climate will change. So you really want to have designed, shovel-ready work, ready to go with purchase orders in for material, executed, ready to go. So when you look at this number, you're like, oh my God, 12 million. Well, if I'm getting 25% back, and well, that's not 24 million. I'm spending and maybe even potentially more money back on these projects. You want to build, the next 2 years, we should be nonstop building.
Hustle,
250%. Everyone's working every day, all day, right? And does Reading Light have enough manpower to do that? You have to contract manpower to do that, which, you guys are figuring that all out. I do it, but
the operating budget is not trivial either, right? And part of
No.
it is personnel, for the exact thing you mentioned about,
Right.
to get ready.
get ready. Yeah.
Because the game on is the expression, right?
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
going to be a mad rush, and we want to be in the
Want to
first
be in there,
wave.
right? But you got to be ready. It's like Mass DOT money. If it's got to be shovel-ready work, and if you're not ready,
You miss it.
you missed it. It's gone. So
For the next 4 years, it's going to be like that.
yeah.
So we are ready.
Yep.
We are ready to meet challenges. All right.
Back to you, in terms of the,
So, ready for the motion? Is that
Yes,
what you're saying?
yes.
Okay, will you read the motion?
Okay, read the motion?
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Yeah. Yes. Nope,
Bob? Okay.
nope, okay. I got it.
Okay.
Okay. Move that the Board of Commissioners, on the recommendation of Citizen Advisory Board, approve the calendar year 2023 capital budget in the amount of $22,849,979 as presented on the recommendation of the General Manager. Any significant changes are to be submitted to the CAB for review and recommendation.
Wait a second.
Second?
Yep.
Yeah, second, I think.
Good.
Bob seconded
Okay,
it.
all those in favor?
Stempnick, aye?
Ms.
Pacino, aye.
Still dry.
All right.
Thank you.
5-0. Thank you, Hamid. So now Gregory Phipps and Ben Blumenthal will present the operating budget. And welcome, Ben. This is your first CO regular board meeting.
correct. Yes, that's right. We are glad that Ben is part of the team as the Director of Finance and Accounting. One of the things that he brings to the table, as we just talked about, is not only the ability to help submit for grants, but as you guys probably know, right, there's a lot of administration behind in terms of the ongoing reporting for all the grant dollars we receive. So there's no free lunch. But as you guys know, right, we are hustling already. Ben's been here, is it 2 full weeks today?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Today, yeah, 2 weeks, yeah. So anyways, he's hustling in terms of he's catching on with a whole bunch of things, but one of the pieces is speed on the grant stuff, because that, you gotta be ready. So we're gonna be ready. So I'm gonna walk through the operating budget. I'm gonna hit some of the highlights, but they tie into the theme that we just talked about. Obviously, the big goal here, the key thing that we continue to focus on from both an operating perspective and also a capital perspective, and the two obviously are intimately and integratedly linked between the two of them. But it goes back to, reliability number one, right? Low cost number two, and non-carbon number three. And there are a whole bunch of pieces that we are continuing, things that we started in 2022 that we're going to accelerate in 2023. I'll draw you to this slide 15 here, the operating budget. I put in the context, you guys know this intimately well, but out of the total operating budget, power supply, which is comprised of energy, the actual energy, transmission cost, capacity cost, and certificate retirements, that is just under, in this year's budget, just under 70% of the total operating budget. The operating costs themselves, which are labor and expenses, building cost, et cetera, that makes up the other 25 to 30%. This year, as you guys have heard consistently, the energy market is extremely volatile, and and I'll walk you through the next slide in just a minute. It's going to continue to be that way for at least the next 2 years. The good news is we had made a very strong push back in 2021. We did numerous power supply contracts. We continued to do those into the spring. And 2 sessions ago, we did another one, which is in process, all non-carbon power supply projects. We are in 2023 about 85%, just almost 86% hedged, which is roughly 5% up from where we would normally do on an annual budget, partly because we're trying to manage the volatility of the market. I'll take it to the next slide. So if you look at slide 16 here, this is the 2023 power supply, which is that middle column there. So we gave you a little bit of, I'll walk you through this table across the top. It's good to get a sense, I mean, there's a lot of detail underneath this, obviously. And this is a snapshot from the budget. It's actually a snapshot, Hamid was very good in terms of laying out the pages, but it's basically a snapshot from page 105. But on the left-hand side, forecasted kilowatt hour sales. So that is a critical number and a critical assumption. So that number in that first column, CY 2021, is actual 658,000 million. I think about it in terms of megawatt hours. So 658,000 megawatt hours of actual sales. That drives the revenue line. It also, because what we delivered in terms of power, what we sell in terms of power, has to be created at the same time. Less losses. So Hamid mentioned the losses earlier. So we buy about 3.5% higher in terms of kilowatt hour sales. But that number, as it goes across, from a budget perspective, because we're trying to be conservative in terms of the revenue line, we assume this to be 0.6% annual growth. So these revenue line numbers are on the lower end of the scale, and that's why we try to make. We're trying basically to take the conservative scenario. We are fairly confident that in 2023, but more importantly 2024, there'll be significant load growth probably to the tune of about 5%. And that'll be due to new customers coming into the territory, and specifically new industrial customers. As we've mentioned over the past several weeks, the engineering team and Hamid and I have been very attentive in terms of encouraging new industrial customers to come into our territory. As we mentioned before, the value add that we bring is a combination of, relatively speaking, low rates, particularly relative to the IOUs, and most of the other MLPs. Our ability to actually handle the load, we're talking somewhere in the range of, all collected, somewhere between 20 and 40 megawatts. Remember, our peak, our total load is about 165 megawatt hours. We expect by the time we get to 2040, 2050, that number is going to be somewhere between 220 and 250. Mm-hmm. So this little block that's probably going to come in play in 2024 and 2025 is going to be fairly significant. But we don't have it put into these numbers here because that would basically overstate, because they're not signed yet, it would basically overstate a revenue line. So we've basically taken 0.6% on these assumptions in terms of forecasted revenue sales. On that left-hand side, there's total operating revenue. And then we'll talk about the key operating expenses, specifically the power supply operating expenses in those lower 3 lines: purchase power fuel, purchase power capacity, and purchase power transmission. The numbers, obviously from an operating budget, the top line is the top revenue line is the total operating revenues. And if you look at 2023, we expect that number to be, we forecast that number to be at least $109 million, almost $110 million. Now we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the very last slide in terms of what the rates are, but the rate assumption here is that these reflect approximately a 10% rate increase that would be applied starting in March 1st of 2023, and we'll talk more about that in a few moments. That line, and I'm just trying to give you guys some context. So, we've gone from in CY 2021 from 86 million actual to 2023 of about 110 million. We're expecting that to go up in 2024 to be 114 million, and then I'll walk you through why that number comes down. It's driven primarily by power supply. Remember that our power supply costs are passed through. right? So there's no, there's no markup anywhere, but those are straight pass-through. The number I want to draw you guys to is that second line here, net dollars per kilowatt hour. So in 2022, the third column from the left, in terms of what's actually happened, we're going to be just under 15 cents on average, all in, 15 cents, that 0.1499, which works out to be, if you round it to be $0.15 or 15 cents a kilowatt hour. That's based on all the estimates that we have and what we think we're going to do as we finish off this calendar year. So the total revenue will be just under $100 million, and the average, and that sales numbers is a pretty good number. That's 662,000, works out to be about 15 cents a kilowatt hour. As we look to the right, I mentioned it'll be at least a 10%. This budget assumes, again on the conservative case, 10% average rate increase, and I say average bill increase is probably the way to say it. It'll be roughly about 16.5 cents a kilowatt hour, and then in 2024, 17 cents, and then coming back down to 16.5 cents roughly for 2025 and 2026. The reason being is that we, as we've been talking about for quite some time, 2023 and 2024 in terms of the forward price curve are on the energy side very expensive. That is expected by all forecasts to come down in 2025 and 2026. And if you guys think about it, the magnitude of that 15% that is opened and the rates that the open market are at right now, they're in excess of $100 $100 a megawatt hour. And our average purchase typically is in the mid-40s, $45, $47. So while that 15% doesn't seem like much, basically the rate is twice it. So that leverage is closer to 30, 35%. So it's not a trivial number in terms of what the market does. We have looked very extensively, and we actually talked about this 2 sessions ago, about different opportunities that we've been looking at in terms of how to minimize the volatility. And we've pursued several of them, and we're pursuing a few of those. But at the end of the day, what I want you guys to walk away with an understanding of is the revenue line is going to be about $110 million for 2023. That's about a 10%, it works out to be almost exactly a 10% increase from what we're actually going to do in CY 2022, which means the customer bills are going to increase roughly about 10% for the year. Those are the key pieces of this slide. Any questions on power supply? And there's a lot of detail here. We could spend an hour and a half on this, but go ahead, Commissioner.
Of course.
So you're already going to see a fuel pass-through on the fuel cost increase.
Yep, that's been policy for quite some time, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Now, the expectation is kilowatt hour charges from our side are now going to go up potentially 10%, or according to this number, 12.5%, right? That
Total bill, so on this slide, so when we talk about, from a budget perspective, we want to think about what's it going to cost for a customer on an average monthly basis.
Correct.
So we think, which is, as you know, and we've talked about before, particularly in our June and July sessions, a monthly bill is a combination of kilowatt hours consumed, hence billed, and the rate. And the rate has 2 big components. The base charge, not quite a base charge, but we call it distribution energy charge, as well as the pass-through fuel charge. So there's a bunch of variables in that equation.
So we're controlling the distribution charge, right? You're right here, fuel's passing through, right? Customers, we're looking for a 12%. When I say it this way, we are on the distribution side, a 10%.
Roughly.
you
Yeah,
know?
that's roughly, yeah.
Okay. So I think, can we defer a chunk of that till the following year? Meaning 10%, do we do, I looked at the following slide, you were like 10,
Yeah.
but do we do 5-5-5? Do we try to defer that to the next year so it's not as much as a hit? And like you said, rates, reliability, right? Is that a possibility, or is it just such a complex?
So there's a bunch of pieces there. So at the end of the day, The answer is no, we don't recommend that. A big chunk of the operating cost, so we have new union contracts. We're actually, going back to the point you mentioned before about being ready with all the grants, et cetera, we're actually, in this budget, there are 10 new positions. Now, we're not fully staffed as it is, and remember, this budget, we have yet in recent past to actually spend all the money that we budget. So the reality is, this is, I'll call this the most conservative case in terms of expenses, because we probably will not be able to make all the hires that we want to make. We probably won't be able to spend all the dollars that are in this budget.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
So at the end of the day, I wouldn't, think about this as a not to exceed budget. And the key thing is to get the people in place so that we are, again, to chase those IRA and infrastructure dollars. There's a lot of work and a bunch of new projects that we've talked about on the operating side. That now is not the time, in my view, my recommendation, because I'm recommending this budget to you guys, to reduce the cost structure, or at least the upside of the cost structure currently. I will present to you, I'm going to present to the CAB on December 7th, rate recommendations, and then I will bring that to you guys on December 14th. We have some flexibility, but it's going to range somewhere between 10, if I go to slide 18, might as well go to slide 18, well, we're at slide 18, you're already. As we talked about just a moment ago, the drivers are kilowatt hours, the actual cost, and the operating cost, back to the point you just made. I put together basically this little table to give you an idea of what this would look like. But this current budget, again, which assumes low kilowatt hour sales, it basically is going to be, the average monthly bill is going to be approximately $12 a month extra. So that 10%, if you look at the second column there, so on the left-hand side of that middle table, CY22 actuals, CY23 plan at 10%, CY23 plan at 13%, and CY23 plan at 15%. I'm giving you this background to let you know what's going to come in the December meeting. This plan is the second line, which is CY22 plan, which is a 10% increase. It's going to go from 15 cents a kilowatt hour to 16.5%. That means the bill is going to go, the average bill, from $123 to $135. If you guys remember back in June, to the volatility, we were actually expecting the average bill in 2022 to be closer to $135. But the volatility of the market, things have softened a moderate amount this fall, primarily due to the U.S.'s inability to export LNG to Europe. There's a bunch of factors driving this. So what we thought was going to happen in 2022 will likely happen in 2023. But that $12 difference between $123 and $135 is on a monthly charge. We're going to look and present to you two other options to be either $139 or potentially $141. I want to put that in the context, and again, 10% or 10% or 13% or 15% rate increase, those are not trivial numbers. They are really not, and we understand that completely. We put those in the context of a worldwide energy market that is, as we talked about in the very first slide, a factor of 2 bigger on the wholesale side, and we put that in the context of the IOUs around us with rate increases that were announced 2 weeks ago of 64%. So whether it's 10 or 13 or 15, and again, this is not meant to be the rate discussion, we're assuming 10. Those numbers allow us to basically allow us to fulfill the charter of reliable, low-cost, non-carbon. So my recommendation is not to make any changes to the operating budget at 10%, and I will come back to you guys in early December to talk about rates.
That's very interesting because everything is relative, right? So
everything's relative
to the IOUs, which I think we've all written the paper, significantly how much they're going to be predicting they're going to increase. So a 10% increase is so much better than a 60% increase.
It's not, it's
Even if
it's
it's
not-
half of that, 30% increase.
Mine is going to 30%.
Yeah.
Likewise here. Better notice.
So,
With fuel, I mean, it's always, fuel
Yeah,
costs are passed through. It's not just 10, it's more. I mean, it's significantly more, because
Right.
there's a fuel cost that's already gone in there, so. Yeah, no, my only question is, knowing that it's coming, right? Do we ladder a little bit softer versus making a big jump? You have to make the jump. Do you anticipate that? And that's, that, I just take, if you could take a look at it,
yeah, no,
I understand that.
So we spent quite a bit of time, when we first put this together, 10% was kind of a choke, because
Yeah.
usually we're in the 5% range. But as we went back and looked at what we're trying to do in terms of, as we talked about extensively over the past year, we're in the middle of a massive transition in the energy space. And as we've all agreed, first mover advantage, you need to be moving fast. Several of the calls we've had with storage guys, they're saying, hey, it's good to hear you guys are pushing on doing this now, because if you wait a year, it'll be too late. If you act now, you'll be looking at deliveries, for storage systems in 24, 25. If you wait till next year, your queue is 2030.
Yeah.
And 2030, now we're into that first tier of 50% non-carbon. So we take this very seriously. We looked at it very carefully. We think we have the right balance in terms of the operating cost, and we fully appreciate that it's, a 10% is not a trivial number for many customers, and $12 a month is not a trivial number for many customers. But we think it fulfills the mission.
Well, the other question would be, what could the rate stabilization fund withstand?
Yeah, well, so we could, if we end up in, so we have that in place, right? And that's roughly about, what, 6.4, 6.6?
6.4, I believe.
6.4 balance right now. So we might put that in place. So we used it a year ago, right? We used 1.2 million of that a year ago. And so we might find opportunities, particularly in November and December of next year. Probably not January, February of this year, because we won't put the rate play in place. But when we decide to do that, obviously we'll bring that to you guys and let us know what we're planning to do. But that could come into play too. But I don't. That would be if things really go crazy. I don't. When I say if the fuel goes way high, I think that the 10% number is very reasonable in the context of the world we're in right now to get stuff done. And the comments are being heard very clearly, but I know that we're doing the budget set up properly.
Definitely, yeah.
Other questions? Okay.
No one's going to like us anymore.
Sorry?
You think
I
they
said,
do
no
now?
one's going to like us anymore.
Well,
Try being on
What do you
school
need
committee.
anymore?
Yeah, what I mean anymore.
yeah. Back to you.
Okay, well, then. So if there's no other further discussion, we'll read the motion to approve this budget.
Well, do we have a presentation on the rest of the budget, the operating budget?
No, we were going to go into more detail.
What?
No, I can. If you had a couple of questions, we have to answer those
Yeah.
real quick.
Yes, would you please?
Okay.
I did push sent 3 questions over this afternoon.
Okay, so let's do so.
Go to page 109, that's where the first one is, line, account 923.
Let me just
I
bring
asked
up
what makes up that number?
the legal one or the
legal.
Yeah,
That's
so
the
the legal. So on the screen right here, we've got the calendar 2022 budget, and then we have the proposed calendar. So calendar 2022 budget, and then we have calendar 2023. The big differences, so those are the components of the key pieces. If you look at the differences, so the big areas you can see in either one of the two budgets, calendar 22 or 2023, going from the bottom up. Integrated resources, legal expenses, these are basically expenses tied to the review of all of our PPAs, right? And we actually brought it down a little bit for 2023 because our portfolio for the next 3 years, we're still going to do projects in terms of PPAs, et cetera, but not at the pace that we were doing at 2021, nor at the rate that we were anticipating for 2022. We actually didn't spend all this in 2022, Phil. The other big piece is in materials management. So line 10 here, that 50,000 in the CY22.
Those are contracts.
Yep, exactly right.
If I can see that. I
Pardon me?
don't know if I can see what you got up there, to be
Oh.
honest. I'm sorry
What
to
page
say.
is that?
106, you said?
It's on page
Here, I'll
109.
highlight it right here.
I've asked what makes up the account 923.
So column D, oops, so on the screen here, this is CY23 budget, right? There's a big piece here, which is in the human resources piece. We ended up, because of the union negotiations, we spent about $276,000. in
200 and
Trying to
what?
find 106.
276.
109,
Oh,
109.
109.
Page 109?
We probably should move about 150 of that 266 up to the general manager legal budget, because that is going to go to the legal fees tied to Maple Meadows and Route 125, et cetera. Those where those numbers should go. So if you look at,
increases are in the human resources.
so.
Do you know what this is?
There's two big, there's
You know
two
what
big
this is?
places.
Trying to get to
One is human
109.
resources, right? And that
Page
number
100.
should actually be
That's on the other budget.
about 150. This should be up here in general manager.
Okay.
And then the other one is this line 10, which is materials management. So 50 to 160.
Why is the jumping from 150 to 160?
Because there's
I
a,
used to be chairman of the finance committee too, so.
yeah. So the big difference is the significant additional work that we've been doing relative to these contracts in the context of renegotiating contracts, setting up contracts for all of the purchases and the supply issues that we're having. There's a lot more work that we've been doing on material management in terms of legal advice to make sure our contracts are done properly. That's where our big difference is. And then those are actually the two big ones. Right? This difference, this one should really be up here, and the reason why that's where it is because we're going to have some significant expenses in terms of acquiring the land that we want to acquire for Maple Meadows and Route 125 in particular.
All right, do you have the same one that the line I asked about?
Yes, sir.
Do you have the same schedule?
You want to do general expenses, or you want to do the
general
BOC?
expenses.
Yep.
Let's do general expenses.
So this is general expenses. This is CY, so we'll walk you through here. So.
Now, the reason I asked for this is there's no breakdown in the book on this.
Right, yep.
Right.
So CY22, CY23, you're gonna see on the general expenses, we were 580 versus 601. But the key pieces, right? You can look at the big pieces. So we've got, miscellaneous general expenses in terms of accounting, 190 to 205. We've got general management miscellaneous expenses, 89 to 102, not a big number of difference. And then the other one is, we've got a placeholder here, $45,000 increase in terms of the general, from 50 to 45. So net, there's some mix in there, but we've basically gone from 580 to 601. Not a huge jump between calendar year
So the
2020.
accounting on the miscellaneous expense, that's the audit fee, or what is in there? What makes up that number? The accounting miscellaneous general expense.
So I don't have that, so do you have that right in front of you? I don't remember what that piece
I
is.
don't have it right in front of me, but I do believe it has to deal with the auditing fee that we pay to our independent auditors to certify us.
Yep.
Okay,
Good,
all right, that's fine.
okay.
You want to put up the next one?
Yep, and then the last question, right?
You wanted,
Phil, I'll let you
Still
present
on
this one almost.
crusade. I'm still on this crusade.
So this is, we have a budget for the Board of Commissioners, right? For expenses tied to the Board of Commissioners. Basically-
25,000, I think, something
Basically,
like that.
basically travel expenses.
30, I
Well, actually,
Is it 30?
it's 15,000, right?
Right, I think we spent 8.
It's 15,000, And if you look at, so actually it rolls from the bottom up, 2017 to 2022. So each year, it's the same basic structure, and we also have one for the cab, right? So the two pieces, but basically 17 through 2022. You know, we left them in 2020, right? And 2021 was COVID, right? We didn't do, it was minimal travel, right? If you look at 2017 and 2018, right? Those 2 years, we spent 6,000 or 9,000 in 2019, so we averaged, I don't know, 8,000, on average $9,000 a year. 2022, we didn't spend very much from a Board of Commissioners perspective. Everything's gone pretty digital. So we're typically, like the rest of our budget, we're always under budget.
Well, the point I'm making is,
Yeah, go ahead.
it's again, on a crusade that brought us up last year again too.
Yep.
We got 15,000 we're budgeting. We're not spending anywhere near 15,000. I really don't think it's fair that we put a budget 15,000 that goes into the budget, goes in the rates, the money we're not spending. I would propose to move it to lower that by 5,000, but you know, I don't know whether everybody would agree with me on that. Okay?
I think we should have a motion to spend that money.
What?
Spend that money.
Okay,
But we're not spending it.
so 5,000 on 100 million. Okay.
Well,
Keep in
it's-
mind
it's
that,
a- it's a
yes,
point.
on this topic.
It's a point.
Commissioner, if I may interject for 1 second.
Yep.
Keep in mind that this is not, you know, how much you are going to spend. This is to not to exceed. So this is your ceiling that you can spend.
Right, I
So,
understand.
you know, especially with the way that inflation is hitting these days and all the other expenses that are starting to pop up once again now that we are hopefully for the most part post-COVID, I would highly recommend keeping your budget at this level to ensure that you do not exceed your spending.
I wanted to make the point that, you know, we budgeted 15,000, we're not spending anywhere near that.
So why don't we pick the next one when we do the 2024? We'll see what we've actually spent, and maybe we'll look at making an adjustment there.
Okay.
I'll make a special note of that for 2024.
That's fine.
Can I make a quick comment?
Sure.
If you haven't given me your expenses for NEPA, et cetera, please do so. I'll send you all a reminder.
How are we supposed to get those documents? Just forward emails
$14,968.
or whatever we have.
That's fine. Yeah, and I'll send a little
I haven't.
instruction.
Okay.
Yeah.
I made my point. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you.
indulging
No,
me.
that's appropriate.
Thank you for indulging me.
It's appropriate.
Greg, have you done any calculations in terms of what each of our towns would receive approximately from the megawatt usage? Remember, we changed it from revenue to megawatt usage.
Exactly right. Kilowatt hour sales.
Right, so I'm sure that
Yes.
members of our audience tonight would certainly like to have a sort of a handle on that.
So it's tied to actual sales. So in the budget, so the below the line number, the number that's not tied to net plant, but it's tied to kilowatt hour sales that goes to the town of Reading is about $2.5 million. And it'll go up so at the end of the day, from a budget perspective, it'll go up 0.6%, so roughly $2.5 million. But it's tied to actual sales, and so we took the conservative approach here. So realistically, so you got to plan on $2.5 million, right? Again, we tried to keep the revenue line conservative and be realistic on the operating cost. The reality is that the operating costs will probably be lower and the revenue line will probably be higher and the kilowatt hour sales will probably be higher. So you know exactly where I'm going. So, okay, so budget 2.5 and then the rest is nice. So yeah, with that new calculation is built, it's built into the budget, and it's in the package that you guys have. So it's, what you guys are approving tonight includes both numbers under the new calculation process.
That's a good point, Joe.
All right. Other questions?
You ready for the motion, Madam Chair?
Sure.
Okay. Move that the Board of Commissioners, on the recommendation of the Citizen Advisory Board, approve the calendar year 2023 operating budget with a net income of $958,514 as presented, to include a tentative 10% rate increase on the recommendation of General Manager.
We have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Mr. Pacino, aye?
Mr. Stenbeck, aye?
Aye.
How would I?
Passing 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Abstain.
We will spend that money wisely.
Did you
Go ahead,
abstain,
you
Bob?
need to say something.
I need that, I'm gonna abstain on this one.
Yes?
It's gonna pass anyway. But I'll wait for the rate discussion. So.
Wait, so Bob
So
abstained?
it's 401?
4-0.
401.
401.
So our subsequent board meetings are Wednesday, November 30th at 6
Yep.
for regular session. December 14th, that's a Wednesday at 7:30 for rates. Thursday, January 19th at 7:30. Wednesday, February 15th at 7:30, and Thursday, March 16th at 7:30. And we still have a joint meeting with the Select Board on Economic Development tentatively scheduled for November,
yeah.
but not with a date, and we're halfway through November, so I don't know.
I don't know whether that's going to happen, you know?
And just FYI, the warrant schedule, Commissioner Coulter will be covering the CAB meeting, so I believe that's December 7th, we just heard?
It, yeah, when's the cab?
December 7th. Here.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be here. Last one we did was,
I supposed to cover it in November? I don't think
I covered November.
Are you covered November? So I owe you one? I owe you one.
Well,
then.
actually, I covered October, but I guess they're not meeting in November because
correct, they're not meeting in November.
it just got off schedule a
No,
little
so
bit.
Meeting-
sorry. So sad,
Well,
so
I took
sad.
your July, I think it was,
Yeah,
so I'll remember that.
yeah, just,
All right, okay.
I can substitute for somebody at some point.
Commissioner Talbot will be covering accounts payable, and Commissioner Stempak will be covering payroll.
All right.
So with that, we
To
adjourn
executive
to
session?
executive session.
Move that the Board of Commissioners go into executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 164, Section 47D, exemption from public records and open meeting requirements in certain instances, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiation with non-union personnel, and to return to regular session for the continuation of the regular session for the sole purpose of adjournment.
You have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Mr. Pacino, aye.
Aye. 5-0, Erica.
We're good.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming, Ed.
Come anytime.
Tomorrow.
Rebecca, did you want us to carry these in?
Tomorrow. Just bring your iPads, please.
Okay.
You mind locking the door, please?
Good night, Craig. Good night, Hamid.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hamid.
Thank you, Hamid.
I'm gonna see you guys.
Thank you, guys.
It'll be a short executive.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
2020 when it was energized, or it was installed. It was the paperwork, well, mine's only, well, it's rated at a 4,500 kilowatt, and only, most of it ever produces is 39.
That was quick compared to
It
the.
flips to 39 because the inverter,
All right.
that's all the inverter can handle, they told me that's okay.
I think it's the
The
time
oversight,
change.
the inverter is
Just
an
throws you.
efficiency
It's,
loss.
yeah, do you do it series, do you do it parallel?
Yeah, well, no, each-
There's always a little something on
There's
that.
always something fun.
Yeah.
Well, no,